Welcome to my channel, A Place to Dock. I'm Julia. Today we are going to unbox the Biblical Tarot. It actually took me quite a while to get this deck, so I'm so excited it's here. And you can check it out at biblicaltarot.com. It is by Krasimir Kalin. Okay, and this says down here it's the second edition. So connect with the divine, discover yourself, and transform your life. I find that this is going to be amazing on how it connects the tarot to the Bible stories. So let's unbox this right now and let's see what we will discover together. Okay, now on the side it says here, created with a purpose. And then already let's throw that off. Already it is giving us the verse Ephesians 2:20, and that is where we are all created for a purpose and created in God's image. So here we are, Biblical Tarot. Let's see how this box opens. It sounds like it's magnetic, which is awesome. And whether seeking guidance, wisdom, or a deeper connection to your spiritual roots, your journey begins here. That is lovely. And let's see, here is the book. It is a sideways book, and it looks like it has all the different cards that it has. Chalices, feathers, grains, and candles for the different suits. And I think some of these are going to be named differently as well. And we'll see that as we go through the deck. Okay, and I'll just take a quick look. It gives an upright meaning and a reverse meaning. And I think by the looks of it, it is the basic tarot meaning, which it has. So, for example, death, it's the end of an era. Transformation and renewal, release and letting go, facing inevitable change. So yeah, let's take a look and we will see what they are like. Okay, perfect. Now, okay, so they are glossy, and okay, so the box itself is a hard box. It says here, you can read that, God is love. Whoever loves, lives in God and God in them. You are loved. Okay, so that's awesome. I'll just put that there out of the way. Okay, so the backs of the cards are the doves on them. Can you see that? The doves on the backs of the cards. Okay, perfect. There you go. Now let's see what the cards look like. Okay, so this is the Soul, and the Soul is the 0 card, which is the Fool. Okay. Creation of a living being. Okay, I'm just wondering if I have another deck handy to see the shape of the deck, okay, the size. So just hold on one moment. I'm going to get another card. Okay, so here is a Morgan Greer card, and we're going to just check the size, and it is just slightly a little bit bigger, as you can see, just that much. So basically it's a great size. Okay, so there we go. First card is the Soul. Okay, and it is created, a living being created. Okay, they feel slippery, but they have a good feel to them. Okay, and the Magician, this is Moses parting the Red Sea. Yeah, that would be, and he was known as a magician in the day, Moses. The High Priestess. This is, I'm going to make sure this focuses here. This is Mary Magdalene. And the Empress is Mother Mary of Jesus. Emperor, King Solomon. Definitely a wise king who used a lot of logic. And the High Priestess was Aaron, the brother of Moses. And yes, he was the father of the priesthood in the Bible, so that's pretty accurate. And that picture is really accurate as well of what they used to wear for their, I think it's called an ephod. And here, Adam and Eve in the garden. The Chariot. This here says Pharaoh's pursuit. And they were chasing after the Israelites. Strength. Daniel in the lion's den. that would definitely take a lot of strength and inner courage to stand up for yourself and then to be thrown into the lion's den just because you're strong. And he made it through the night. And here we have the hermit, John the Baptist. He went before Jesus as the forerunner, and he was often known as being in the wilderness, John the Baptist. And here we have wheel within a wheel. And this is actually from Ezekiel. You'll look that up. And he had a vision of the wheel within a wheel. And then we have justice, which probably many know. This is Moses and the 10 Commandments when he was up on the mountain and he brought them down for the people. And this is interesting. The hanged man. This is Peter's crucifixion. And Peter asked to be hung upside down because he did not feel worthy to be hung as Jesus was hung upright. So that's his own choice, was to be hung that way. And here we have death, the fourth horseman. This is from Revelation when death rode in on the pale horse. Temperance is balance. Mary and Martha. Oh, I love that. Mary and Martha were sisters. Mary chose to sit at Jesus' feet, and Martha wanted to serve. And she was asking Jesus, why can't Mary come and help me serve all these people? And he says, Mary has chosen the better thing. I always love that story. And here we have the devil card, which is Satan tempting the humans to sin. The tower. This is the Tower of Babel. That's interesting. The people themselves tried to feel that they could reach to the heavens themselves, all on their own strength, and then they got cast down, and they were forced to speak in many languages after that, so they had to, that's when languages began. And here we have the Star of Bethlehem. That's beautiful. The wise men following the star. And that also, that really depicts hope too, right? The hope of that Christmas brought to everybody. The moon, this is Jacob's dream. Jacob dreamed that he had a connection with heaven, and God came down and spoke to him in a dream when he was running away, and this is when he started his own life pursuit, was after this turnaround time. The sun, the triumphal entry into Jerusalem. This was Palm Sunday when Jesus went into Jerusalem on donkey, and they would wave their palm branches. And that's awesome. Nice pictures. Wow. The pictures are really colorful and beautiful. And here we have the Last Judgment. Wow, look at that. So you have the devil on the right and the lamb on the left, and the people are being judged. And then we have the world card. This is the New Jerusalem. That's gorgeous. What a gorgeous picture. Okay, so those are the major arcana cards. Now let's take a look at the minor cards. This is Ace of Candles, which is the wands, okay? And so each one now has a verse, and then it says what the story is. So this is the Ace of Candles, and this is Moses and the burning bush. This is where God said, take your shoes off, for you're standing in holy ground. So there's going to be a lot of depth to these cards if you know the verses, or if you want to look up the verses and see what other lessons and how they connect. The Two of Candles. Okay, so this is Elijah on Mount Carmel, and he asked all the people whose God is stronger, and they prayed to Baal, and he prayed to the living God. And before he prayed, he had his altar doused in water, I think 7 times, and then even then, the fire came down. So yeah, there's a verse there, and you can read that story. 3 of Candles, which is the vision, right? This is the call of Abram. when Abraham was taken up to a high mountain and God says, everything you see, this is for you. And then we have 4 of candles, which is typically the wedding and celebration. And here it says the ark brought to Jerusalem. So they were all dancing because they were excited that the ark was brought into Jerusalem. Then the 5 of candles, Joseph and his jealous brothers. Oh yeah, that suits it perfectly, because the 5 of candles is like conflict and amongst those that you know are close to you. And so yeah, he was definitely not cherished by his brothers. 6 of candles, which is 6 of wands, which is a victory. And this says the fall of Jericho. That's when they marched around the city 7 times and then they just yelled and then the walls came down. And I had the victory. 7 of candles, which is the 7 of wands, where you stand your ground. And this is David and Goliath. David faced the giant with 1 stone. He hit him on the forehead and knocked him down. And here we have 8 of candles, which is things moving quickly and news as well. And this is Philip and the Ethiopian. And this is when, the verse says there, when the Lord took Philip away and the eunuch did not see him again, he went on his way rejoicing. So that was actually pretty fast in speed there, yeah. And they had communication, and this is when he taught him an awful lot in that story. So that's pretty cool. So there is messages coming in quickly, urgently, and things moving forward. The 9 of wands is Satan tests Job. And Job lost everything, and he still did not renounce God. He stood the tests, and afterwards he did receive his reward, but that was extremely hard. Okay, and the 10 of candles is like the overwhelmed work, and this is Jeremiah's burden. Jeremiah, he said here in the verse, "Why did I ever come out of the womb to see this trouble and sorrow and to end my days in shame?" Page of candles, which is the page of wands. And this is Miriam. Miriam prays for God. She was the one that was known to sing and lead the people in singing, especially after they came through the river. So you can see the walls were here, the walls of the water, and they walked through on dry ground. And then she led them in singing, and they were pretty happy and excited about that because they were on an adventure, a new adventure, that's for sure. And then you have here Joshua, the leader of faith. This is the Knight of Wands, very energetic. You can see in his face, he's determined. And this is like a common Bible verse which everybody quotes. "Be strong and have good courage. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And the Queen of Candles, which is the Queen of Wands, this is Deborah. She was the prophetess and a leader. And people came to her because she was judging. She was a very wise woman. And then we had the King of Candles, the King of Wands, which is King David. I think everybody knows King David. He's very passionate, living his life with his purpose. All right, so that is the candles, which is the wands. And now we're going to do the chalices, which is the cups. And this is the Ace of Chalices. And this is the Samaritan woman at the well. And Jesus knew her and told her everything all about her. And the Two of Cups, which is the bond of David and Jonathan. They committed to each other for their whole life and their families and on. That's pretty strong bond. Okay, so Three of Chalices, which is the Three of Cups, and it's a celebration, the wedding at Cana. This is when Jesus turned the water into wine. I think that was his first miracle as well. So that's pretty exciting for Three of Chalices. Then you have the Four of Cups and Jonah's anger. Jonah first did not listen to God, and didn't do what he said, and then he was really sad about that. So, yeah. And 5 of chalices, when we have the grief, this is the prodigal son. Oh, yeah, that makes sense, because he had the choice to stay with his father or not. And then he chose to go back to his father. And his father received him and gave him a new ring and everything and welcomed him back in the family. But first he had to come to the end of himself at the 5 of chalices. That's great. Good option there. I love that. 6 of chalices, of course, Jesus and the children. Jesus said, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and hinder them not, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." And the 7 of cups. 7 of cups is our options, and this is the temptation of Christ when the devil was tempting Jesus after his 40 days in the wilderness. He thought he would get him when he was his weakest, but even then, he stood his ground and stood what he wanted to keep his life pure. And we have 8 of cups. This is the ascension of Jesus, when he, of course, loved his disciples, and then he went back up to heaven, so he left them behind. But he did leave his spirit with them. Okay, 9 of chalices. This is the Feast of Purim. This is Esther, Queen Esther. Oh, I love it. 9 of cups. She led them to safety. All the Jews, she led them all to safety. And the verse for her, for Esther, is, for such a time as this. She was there for such a time as this. And the 10 of chalices, this is Elizabeth and Zechariah's joy. This is the baby, John the Baptist. He was born, I think, 6 months before Jesus was born, and he led the way for Jesus. But this is a very dear family. And then we have the Page of Cups, which is the Page of Chalices, which is Samuel. And his mother taught him to serve in the temple. And he heard God calling him, "Samuel, Samuel." And finally, after 3 times, Samuel said, "You just tell God, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant heareth.'" And so, yeah, he heard. And he thought he was hearing things, but you know what? He was just being obedient and open to hearing messages. Then we have the Knight of Cups. This is young King David, when he used to play his harp for the king, King Saul. Very passionate and loving heart. And then we have the Queen of Cups, which is Hannah. And Hannah is Samuel's mother. And she actually gave her son, she prayed for the son, and then she gave him over to be learning how to be the servant in the church. But she had a lot of faith, and she went to see him every year in the temple. And the King of Cups, Nehemiah, building Jerusalem. He had such a passion for leading the people that he saw the land and the city was in ruins, and he had the desire to rebuild Jerusalem. Okay, now we're going to do feathers, which is swords. Okay, so just like normal, the swords are epiphanies. And this is the Ace of Feathers, and this is Saul's conversion. He was walking down the street and he got an epiphany. That is definitely the epiphany. God shone his light on him and said, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" And that's when he changed his whole life right there. 2 of Feathers, which is the 2 of Swords, which is choosing. And this says God's test of Abraham's faith. This looks pretty morbid here in this picture, but really God was testing him and asking if he would give his son. And it's actually a foreshadowing of when God gave his son Jesus. But there was a ram that was hidden in the thicket, and God stopped him in time and said, no, don't hurt your son. I know that your faith is real. So that is his testing of his faith. 3 of Feathers, which is the 3 of Swords. This is so sad. You can see he's just crying and aching. This is King David and his son Absalom came against him and was fighting against him, rebelled. That's the word. And yet, when he died, people thought he would be glad, but no, he wasn't. He says, "That was my son." Even though his son wronged him, he was still loving his son. Okay, so this is the Four of Feathers, which is the Four of Swords. And Elijah's retreat into silence. He had just conquered an amazing battle, and then he had to withdraw. He was actually so weak in his mind after that that he had to regroup and get re-strategized again. In his own thinking, he had to clear up his own thoughts. And it says here, the fire came. After the fire, God spoke in a gentle whisper. That's right. So God passed him by with an earthquake and the rain and the fire, but God was not in the earthquake, God was not in the rain, God or in the wind, and God was not in the fire, but God came in a gentle whisper. And here we have the Five of Feathers, which is the Five of Swords, and King Saul's tragic downfall. He didn't do the right option, and he lost his kingdom. And then we have Six of Feathers, which is Six of Swords, and this says Ruth the Moabite. Ruth became a widow, and then she followed her mother-in-law to another land, and she completely left everything behind to follow her mother-in-law and God's people. Seven of Feathers, which is deceit, and this is Jacob the deceiver. Jacob, his father was blind. I'm not sure if they blindfolded him, but maybe they did that for blind people. His father was blind, and he says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm Esau." And he lied, basically. And he says, No, I'm Jacob. He said, "I am Esau, your firstborn," and his name was Jacob. And he says, "You don't smell like him." But anyways, he tricked his father to give him the blessing, and he stole the blessing from his brother. Definitely a deceiver. Then we have Eight of Feathers, which is the Eight of Swords, and this is Jonah trapped inside the fish. Don't know if you remember that story, but he was in the boat, and the boat was in a big, huge turmoil, and the people were going to die, and he says, "Throw me overboard because I was the one that caused this distress," because he did not obey God and go to Nineveh. So anyways, once they threw him over, the winds and everything calmed down, but he was swallowed by a fish. Then he prayed to God. After 3 days, he got out. The fish spit him up on the land. Nine of Feathers, Peter denies Jesus. Jesus told Peter before the cock crows 3 times, "You will deny me." And he denied him 3 times. And then after that, he heard the cock crow, and then he realized exactly what had happened, that Jesus was right. He did it, and he was really sad that he did that. It bothered him a lot. And then you have the 10 of Feathers, which is the 10 of Swords. And this is Samson losing his strength. Okay, so this is Delilah over here. She betrayed Samson, and he was like the strongest man. He could knock down anything. And they wondered why he was so strong, and then they realized, she found out by betraying him, that it was his hair that made him powerful. And so she betrayed him and had his hair cut, and his strength left him. So that's like that. And then he felt distraught. He was betrayed. Okay, so Page of Swords, we have Esther saves the Jews. Okay, so this is when Queen Esther, she saved the Jews by being very smart and very wise and courageous, because she was just a young woman, and yet she went in front of the king, and she saved the Jews instead of them all being annihilated. Okay, Knight of Feathers, which is the Knight of Swords, Paul the Apostle. After he had that epiphany on the road to Damascus, he then started preaching about Jesus, and he was very eager to get the word out. So that's Knight of Swords, which is him. He was very energetic and pursued giving out the voice of God to the people. Then we have Queen of Feathers, which is Queen of Swords. This is Abigail, the peacemaker. She was a very smart woman, very wise. I think she actually became the king of David after. Sorry, not the king. She became his wife, King David's wife, because she was so smart. King of Feathers. This is the judgment of Solomon. I don't know if you know this story, but there were two women. One stole the child of the other one, and then they both were in front of the king for the judgment to get their case settled. And one woman said, he's my son, and the other one said, no, he's mine. But the wisdom of Solomon, he says, okay, what we're going to do is cut the child in half, which is a terrible thing to say, but his wisdom in that was that the true mother said, no, you can give it to the other woman. And as a result, he knew which one was the real mother. And then he said, give the child to her. And we have, okay, so that was the swords. So he was very wise, very smart. Now we have the pentacles, which is the Ace of Grains. Here they have them grains. So the Ace of Pentacles is entering into the promised land. Of course, right? So I will give you every place where you set your foot as I promised Moses. He said that to Joshua, and then they went in and they took the land. Two of Pentacles is Lydia, the faithful businesswoman. She was actually the lady that sold purple cloth, and she was very well known. Three of Pentacles is working together. And here it is building Solomon's temple. And he had only the best craftsmen who could do the job of whatever job they did. And he got them all to build the temple. Four of Pentacles is the parable of the rich fool. So he had an awful lot, but what was the reason for having it? Did he forsake his own soul just because he had all the wealth? Five of Grains. This is the bleeding woman. She was bleeding for like 12 years, and she said, if I could just touch his garment. Jesus was actually just passing right through. He was going to heal another young girl, but as he was on his way, this lady touched him, and he said, some energy and some power has gone out of me. And then she came and she said, if I just touched you, I would be healed. And he did. He healed the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. Six of Grains, which is Six of Pentacles. And this is the widow's generosity. So these guys back here said, who is this woman? We give so much more than she gave. And he says, yeah, you gave out of your abundance, but she gave out of all she had. So which one was more generous? Seven of Grains, which is sowing the seed. And all the seed falls on different grounds. And being patient for your harvest. Eight of Pentacles is the craftsman. They are constructing again the sanctuary, and they are using their skills. Nine of Pentacles is Queen of Sheba. Oh, I love the Queen of Sheba. And the Queen of Sheba is basically the equivalent of King Solomon, but she was from the east. She came to see him and gave him some of her spices and precious stones from her country, and the two of them talked for hours on end, and he shared his wisdom with her. She was a very independent woman, very wealthy, and so everybody knows King Solomon was wealthy, but she was too, and she met him on his level. Love it. And then we have the Ten of Pentacles, God's promise to Abraham, all the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. That's very much of a legacy. And Page of Pentacles. This is Priscilla. And she is teaching the teachers. Priscilla and Aquila. They opened their home and taught other people. After Jesus had died, this was in the New Testament. They opened their home to people coming and learning. Then we have the Knight of Pentacles, very slow, methodical. Oh yeah, this is a good one for this. Jacob works for Laban. You see, Jacob worked 7 years because he really loved Rachel. And then he was duped. And then he ended up marrying Leah. And he didn't know it until after the wedding. And then he was kind of upset. But he said, I will work another 7 years for Rachel. So he worked 14 years to get the woman that he wanted. That's a very slow, methodical thing to do. Very much had a plan. The Queen of Pentacles is the Proverbs 31 woman. That's a gorgeous picture. Just love it. Beautiful. And there's a great description. If you need to find a description of a wonderful woman, that would be her. Okay, she's very smart, and her lamp does not go out at night. Her trading is profitable. And then the last card here is the King of Pentacles. This is Joseph in charge of Egypt. And I was noting that he was 30 years old. Talk about a solar return. He knew the dream that the Pharaoh had, and he explained it. And he said there's going to be 7 good years and 7 bad years. And he says, if I were you, I would appoint someone who is very wise to handle this and to organize everything. And the king said, okay, you're the one. So Joseph then became in charge of Egypt, the second in command. So there you go. This is the Biblical Tarot. I love it. And the cards, again, like I said, they're a little slippery, but they feel good. They don't feel like they're going to slide. So I'm going to shuffle for a moment, and then we'll pull a card, and then we're going to just see what message we get from this. So hold on one moment, please. Okay, so let's shuffle these this way as well. Rifle shuffle. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Yeah, it's very lovely. You can hear the quality. That's what I listen for. Okay. Okay, so then let's shuffle now, and let's pick a card and see what message we need to know from this deck for today, for when you're watching. Let's see, what's this? This is 4 of Feathers. This is Elijah's retreat into silence. So perhaps we need a time to retreat and to go into silence. And let's see what the book says here on that. 4 of Feathers. The 4 of Feathers. Here it says, seeking solitude and recovery, emotional and spiritual renewal, divine encounter and guidance, respite from conflict, and preparation for future challenges. So this would be a wonderful time to go into a little time of hibernation and into silence and meditate and find out what message you get so that you can go on to your next leg of your journey. 4 of Feathers. I hope you've enjoyed this reading. Again, this is the Biblical Tarot, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and have a great day. Thanks. Bye for now.